our panelist, Catherine Marshall, who has had, I think, more than 4 decades of experience with humanitarian work. We're all much, we all started when we were just children, 2 or 3 years old. But she is a senior fellow at Georgetown University's Berkeley Center for Religion and World Affairs and a Georgetown visiting professor. She's also executive director of the World Faiths Development Dialogue, which I understand you were engaged in, perhaps if not launching, definitely you're there at the beginning. But before that, she had a career with the World Bank, and there she worked for many years and then led the World Bank's faith and ethics work through the first decade of this century. And her books include Development and Faith, Where Mind, Heart, and Soul Work Together. And I loved the fact that you also, in your article in Reflections, Catherine, talked about the bottom line questions. Why should we care? What can we do about it? What is our responsibility? And you gave us reasons to care, not only the reasons based on faith and on compassion, but also the practical reasons for why we need to care and act in our own self-interest on behalf of the poor. And then you talked about the complexities, and it is not simple. So I don't know how much of that you are going to share with us again, but I commend all of you to read Catherine's article. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you. Well, Senator Coombs has said almost everything that I would like to say, but there are a few points that I think we should highlight. The first, that I was struck when my son, who I think was 10 at the time, challenged me when I was speaking and saying that we can achieve a world without poverty. We have the resources, we have the know-how, we have the examples. And he said, "You don't really believe that, do you?" But I believe it with all my heart, that we can, and because we can, we have the obligation to do something about it. It's a very different situation from most of world history, where poverty was the norm. But in country after country, we've seen transformations in a lifetime, in a career. So I think that first point is one that people don't believe. They're like my 10-year-old son at the time. They don't fully accept that this is something, it's a transformation that is our gift, but is also our obligation and our responsibility. The second thought, and you cautioned us against using statistics, and I will want to pick up simply on 2 of the numbers, not the billions that we quote all the time, but the 20,000 children who die every day, and one other number that I never can get away from because of personal experience, which is that a woman is 2,000 times more likely to die in Niger in childbirth than she is in Scandinavia. And actually, it's rather sad that that number is not an American number, because Scandinavia does a lot better than the United States. But apart from the raw injustice of these deaths, I was scanning the newspapers coming back from a trip. There's no mention of these deaths. The women who die, the children who die, they die, the people who die of AIDS die hiding, almost in shame. And yet, one of the joys of our society is that we mourn every death. We value and we treasure every person. And somehow that sense, it's one of the things that's most frustrating for people who work in development, is how absent, how invisible these problems seem to be in everyday life. So I think that's one of the challenges for all of us, apart from believing that it's possible, to find ways to communicate both the hope and the injustice, the raw injustice. Reading about what's happening in North Africa and talking to people, there are, I think, some important messages for us. First, we live in a different world. And it's an interconnected world that's a world that's connected not only by cell phones and computers, it's connected by ideas and by visions. And the hopes that those young people have are so similar to the hopes of young people at our universities. They are the hopes for a job, for respect, for decency. But they are also impatient, as our young people are impatient. And I think that that's something we should never forget. But one thing that this surprise revolution calls us to, I think, as much as anything, is a much more intelligent and professional analysis of what religion means in this, because religion is absolutely a vital part. We should never think that because it's not completely visible, that it's not a fundamental part of these societies that are profoundly religious. So I think that understanding, we've been caught off guard in not understanding the religious nature, and we need a professional, a compassionate, and a sober understanding of where religion fits. My last comment, I'm going to tell you just about one of the thousands of people that I've worked with over the years. Aisha Chenna is a remarkable, courageous Moroccan woman. She won the Opus Prize, which is given for people by a Minnesota foundation that's looking for the next Mother Teresa. But she has worked for 40 years with the people who are at the very bottom of Morocco's society and of society across many parts of the world, including Africa, who are young, unmarried mothers. And she has, for 40 years, battled to change the laws that have discriminated against women, to put women's issues into the light, and to help one by one these girls. But one of her comments echoes a little bit what I was saying about the challenges that we face. Talking to her, she talks time and time again about the knife edge. We're on the knife edge. We're between hope and great danger. And if we do not act, if we act wrong, if we make mistakes, if we're clumsy, she's talking about herself. If I push too hard in the wrong place, or if I miss a chance, we're facing exciting possibilities, but also a very dangerous world, a very interconnected world. And we need to keep the courageous fighters, the women and the children, always at the center of our minds.
Quite a challenge. Thank you very much, Catherine.